And I do distinctly remember one of the fourth-year lawyers coming up to me and saying, "Right, well, you're president now." And I said, "What?" No. Yes, he said, that's what happens. You are now the JCR president.
So when I stood for election, I was well known, and having a different accent gets you noticed anyway, and being a woman.
I was elected as secretary, which was fantastic because I got these lovely rooms in the new quad. And then, I don't know if you know, but what happened was the JCR president, Richard Fuchs, couldn't take part in the strike. So the food in Hall was terrible, really, really terrible. And it had been terrible all my time there. And to be honest, I hardly ever ate in Hall. It was so bad. And eventually the junior common room decided we were just going to boycott Hall. And this was determined to be sort of like a strike, and Richard felt, because he was with the armed services, he wasn't allowed to participate. So he had to stand down as president.
Well, it was actually quite competitive. I had been food member, which meant the food was bad at Hertford, and we had a catering manager called Mr. Cook, who was universally disliked for his view that the food was good and the students that it was terrible. So I'd been active in setting up an alternative lunch facility, having a food strike, and trying to improve the food. And so people knew me through that. But it was a bitterly fought election because I was up against the cricket captain and the rugby team. And there was a campaign that they weren't going to elect a, excuse my French, bloody Irish woman. I don't know if it was the Irish or the woman that offended the most. So it was my first experience of elections being tough and people being critical. But I went through the hustings, I held my own, and the elections themselves, as I said earlier, were as a result of the fact we had single transferable vote. Again, Hertford ahead of its time, not first past the post, and the anarchists all gave me their vote. So I got all the second votes, and that's how I won. So we had an active anarchist group in college.
And that's when I went to the governing body. And Geoffrey was chairing it, and we talked about the state of the college food. Interestingly, looking back on it, I don't know why I wasn't more intimidated, but I wasn't. I just went along, and I wasn't the only woman there. There was another woman, I can't remember who it was. I don't know who it might have been, but I know Van Norden was there, and the bursar, and Geoffrey Warnock, and I don't know who else. But anyway, it was fine, and I stood up for the common room and said, something's got to be done because no one will go and eat in Hall until it changes.
We had our principal, Geoffrey Warnock, wonderful chairman. He had a slight smile, and I think he supported the students against the governing body. That was my instinct. I went in with the MCR president, and we were the only two students who represented the student body, and we spoke about issues of the day. My favourite achievement was that we had to negotiate the rent increases, and the governing body had decided they wanted like 8% increase, and we were thinking 3% was what we could afford. And one of the more, I won't name him, but one of the more officious members of the governing body said, "Oh well, the students can always get a hardship grant if they can't afford the increase." And I said, "Well, hang on a minute. No, they can't. Not if they're a woman or if they're Scottish, Irish or Welsh, because at that time the hardship grant was only available in trust to English men, and there were about 45% of the college who were neither English nor men. So they couldn't qualify. I'd done my research and I won the argument, and I think we settled about 5% increase, which was a good result.